You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and joining me once again, Mr. Kevin Durso. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, you will see that I am wearing Philadelphia Eagles hoodie.
No, I am not, but I am wearing green.
Well, you are wearing green, and honestly, I thought you were doing it on purpose, but we'll figure, that's fine. We'll
There's an element of purpose.
Okay.
I have been wearing green all week. I'll admit to that.
So, in case you missed it, the Eagles won the NFC Championship game. We'll talk about that in just a second. Before we get there, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at YWT Podcast. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso. Find us on sportstalkphilly.com. Okay. Super Bowl 52 will feature the Philadelphia Eagles. 57, I'm sorry. Roman numerals are hard. Super Bowl 57 will feature the Philadelphia Eagles. Super Bowl 52 also featured the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's
in fairness, we're recording on February 5th, which is one day after the 5-year anniversary. So you've had it pushed down your throat.
Memories was fun yesterday.
Exactly, like memories, and it was all over Twitter and Facebook.
And if you watch the Philly special and you don't get a little bit of a tear in your eye, you're not a human being. Get out of my face.
That memory for me is always, it's not that I'm not trying to say it was like it's awesome.
Right.
It's always a little weird to me because I don't even remember having that much of a reaction to it live. Like it almost took time to process, to be like, wait a minute, we just saw something that is among the greatest things. Like reflection wise, it became this bigger thing than it was in the moment, because it was like,
and especially when the mic'd up released, and we hear
that adds to the lore.
You hear Nick Foles call for it. Doug Peterson pauses and goes, yeah, let's do it. Yeah,
there's something awesome about the way he responds to that. Like, he's like, man, this kid in this moment is trying to pull that trigger. Wow. Okay. Yep. And the coach went with it, which is even better.
It might be the single greatest play in Philadelphia Eagles history.
Oh, I think it definitely is.
It's up there.
Call anyway. I mean, like if you later in that game, the play that I think that also stands out is the strip sack.
Oh, the strip sack, absolutely.
Fumble recovery that pretty much. I mean,
that sealed it.
It does, but you were never certain because Tom Brady was on. Which also ties in because, by the way, like news drop on Monday morning after the NFC AFC Championship, Tom Brady goes, "Hey, I'm retiring for good.
This time, right?" Yeah, we'll see if he gets that Brett Favre itch in mid-August. We'll see. So, NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy gets hurt right away.
Yep.
Backup, I forget his name. It sounds like Jack Johnson. I know it's
Josh Johnson.
Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson gets hurt. Brock Purdy comes back in, can't throw. Eagles kind of walk to a big victory.
This is like three sports in one, because we're a hockey podcast that you're talking football, and then the quarterback for the 49ers now needs Tommy John surgery, which is much more a baseball term than anything. But that's exactly what happened. He tore his UCL on that hit. Oh, it's awful. Yeah,
it felt long time old. At this point, old Eagles fans will remember the body bag game.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Now, this wasn't quite that. Obviously, we didn't have carnage and destruction all over the field. But anytime you get down to, we don't have a quarterback, so they're running gadget plays, they're running McCaffrey, because Brock Purdy's arms don't work.
Right, and Purdy was able to at least be in the game, even though he's not physically capable of participating in the game the same way.
I'm stunned he didn't start throwing left-handed. Or opposite-handed. I don't know if he's a lefty or not.
There was once you get to this level, there's mic'd up a lot.
Right.
George Kittle asked him, "Can you throw left-handed?" Just to give it, he was literally sitting there, trying to pull anything he could, I guess, because, you're the tight end. You're perfectly fine, by the way.
And in case you're a hockey purist listening to this show and you don't know football, by the way, being down 3 scores and having to run the ball every play, not really ideal.
No, it's not.
You'd like a quarterback who can, get the ball downfield.
It's crazy to me that game was 7-7 with 3 minutes left in the first half. That quickly it turned into blown open, and they never got close to being back in the game. And it had nothing it's not that it had anything to do with their quarterback. It did, but it took him turning the ball over for all of a sudden for everything to feel like, oh, okay, they're in this net, like they're in control now.
Right.
Like you kind of never like there was a you'll hear stories, and some of this is true. Yes, the main quarterback that they had, who's still their third stringer, goes out, and everybody like kind of got comfortable. I think or not everybody, but a lot of people did. Like, there's no way now they don't have enough like they don't have a quarterback. How are they going to win this game?
Yep.
But it was still 7-7. So like, there's a little element of where you're like, they're not doing anything offensively either, and they're healthy. What's going on?
Right.
It brought a lot of stuff into question. But either way,
and
we're all hopped up because they did win the game, and
absolutely. And looking across at the other side of the bracket, you have a Kansas City team who a lot of people feel should have lost that game against Cincinnati, the AFC Championship game. A lot of people say that the refs were rigged and blah, blah, blah. The penalty on the final drive, that's a penalty.
Yep.
Given the other circumstances of the game, I get why you're upset. That is a penalty. Come on now.
You gotta realize something, okay? Like, at least from my standpoint, yeah, there was yelling at the TV when the penalty was called, and it's not because it's not a penalty. It's because it's how can you do? And I get
frustrating,
and it's hard to stop once you start. I get it, like in terms of a tackle, but still, there was just this like recognition of you got to do everything you can not to touch him, and it didn't look like that was everything that could have been done per se. I mean, like I said, it's hard to stop once you start the action, but there was a lot more force behind that than there could have been, I guess. And that's why you're like sitting there going, what are you doing? You just gave them the game.
Dictionary definition, unnecessary roughness.
You know what? The game was given to them before then, though, too, because look, you asked me last week, or no, not last week. I'm sorry. You asked me 2 weeks before. Once we knew that they were already in the NFC Championship game, because we did.
No, that was last week.
No. You asked me the week before. They had won on Saturday. We were waiting for Sunday results. Who would you rather? Who'd you rather play? And I I gave an answer. Like, I did give you a solid answer. I didn't give you one of those pandering answers that takes both sides.
You would never.
I don't. It's knowing that we know who it is at this point. Like, we know who's in the Super Bowl at this point against them. I firmly believe because you start wondering already. You're in and you get to watch who it's going to be. They've almost lost both games in the playoffs to this point, to an extent. I mean, they've been in close games that are one score, could go either way kind of things. And in both cases, the team that they were playing had a moment where they turned the ball over at a crucial spot. So my answer is pretty simple, and I even said this is not a prediction. It is, but it's not. Like, it's not picking a team for it. This is a prediction, though.
Oh, I'll be asking you for your prediction, by the way, before we get out of this
my answer is then I can give it to you at some point, but like, you'll get the hint kind of already based off of this. If you don't turn the ball over, you're going to win the Super Bowl.
Fair enough.
And there's a team that's playing in this Super Bowl, in particular, that has trended that in a positive direction in that light for most of the year. You repeat that, you're gonna win the Super Bowl. And that's and that's why, like, I'm not willing to throw a score on it or anything. My answer is very simply, if you don't turn the ball over, you're gonna win. And
listen, I'm okay with getting right into predictions. I can start here.
Sure. I mean, I'm not putting a score on it. I'm telling you that now.
First and foremost, I think the Eagles are going to win the game. I'll come right out with that.
That's fair.
I think if Patrick Mahomes is healthy, if Patrick Mahomes is able to operate competently, given his injury, I think it'll be a competitive game. I see the Eagles winning a fairly high scoring, like a 35-31, like something like that. If Mahomes is compromised in any form or fashion, Eagles by 2 touchdowns.
I've been going back and forth on this for a while in terms of, like, because I definitely never get too overconfident as the games get more magnified, because I just don't buy that. Like, and it's not a remain humble kind of approach. It's more of a know who you're playing. Like, Mahomes has won a Super Bowl. He's been to two of them at this point.
He's one of the best quarterbacks in football.
I mean, he's arguably the best, I would say, and not
Fair
only
enough.
that, he's on a path of, like, not that anybody's going to repeat what Brady did, but when you've been to 5 conference championship games in a row and now 3 Super Bowls as a result,
That's fair.
You can start talking bigger conversation with him, obviously. Just on an individual basis, by the way, not what he does for his team. The only time that he ever showed signs that he was hurting was when he had to roll out to the left. When he rolls to the right, he's fine. When he rolls to the left, he was limping. Now he's got 2 weeks to recover from the last game, so
the Eagles have 2 weeks to watch tape.
Well, my answer to that is not even about watching tape. It's you brought look what happened to Purdy on the first drive of the game. No matter what his skill level is, or no matter what string quarterback he is, Hassan Reddick came off of the right side and pressured him, and he got hit, and then he got hurt. Well, if somebody's coming from, I'm not saying that Mahomes is going to get hit right away or get sacked right away and turn the ball over or anything like that. But if someone's coming from the right side, your natural move is go left.
Go left.
Well, if you go left and that ankle's hurting you, then you're going to feel it right away. And the Super Bowl that they lost, because he's won one and he's lost one. The Super Bowl that they lost, he never got comfortable. He was battling a toe injury, and he never got comfortable because the line was depleted. So it kind of comes down to, again, another angle of it for me, in addition to turning the ball over, is if the two areas that I think that the Eagles are the most skilled in, which is offensive line and defensive line. So if you protect your quarterback and get to theirs, you're probably winning this game too. I think that that's another angle of it. So do I think the Eagles are going to win? Yes, I do, because I think that somewhere along the ride that this has been, you just had a feeling that this was it became increasingly more and more possible, as they won game after game after game.
When they were the best team in the NFL at, 11-0 or whatever it was.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it wasn't 11-0, but yes, to your point, I get it. Like they were, I think it was 8-0 and 11-1, and they didn't lose another. They lost
They were the last undefeated team in the game.
They were the last undefeated team, and they lost one game going into week 15 or 16 or something like I think it was 16 even, because they had 3 games left. They were 13-1, and then they lost 2 in a row because Hurts couldn't play, and then Hurts had to come back and play the most vanilla offense game that I think I've ever seen, because they didn't want to have him do anything on the ground.
Right.
And they still won against the Giants by only 6, really, but one of those touchdowns was total garbage time, so they won convincingly enough. And then played the same team the following week and destroyed them, or 2 weeks later, and destroyed them, and then destroyed San Francisco in the process too. So they've been so consistent. It's hard to
dominant.
Right. It's not even just in terms of dominant. Like, the consistency at which they play gives them an edge, I think.
Yep.
And it's not to say Kansas City's only lost 3 games this year too, so I'm not trying to put that past them. But
they're a juggernaut team with experience, like we talked about.
Sure, but it's not like there aren't guys on the Eagles that either don't have experience. You know what it is? There's not guys on the Eagles that don't have big game experience. Like, it was what are we talking here? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that I guess it would be 2 years ago, that Devontae Smith was playing in a national championship game. Right. Like, for Alabama. Yep. I think he knows what a big game feels like in a big stadium where it's all on the line one time. I'm not worried about guys like that. And there's enough veterans on they've got just enough veterans who are having this first time experience too that make a difference. Yep. Slay hasn't been to a Super Bowl before, but do you think he's a veteran enough to know how to handle himself? Absolutely. Right. I'm not worried about some of these guys. And surely there's got to be guys who have been to the last one who are going to keep them in check and be like, this is what it's like, prepare yourself, kind of stuff.
So talking about guys who were on the last team, that has to bring us to the Kelsey Bowl here. We gotta touch on that real quick.
Sure.
First brothers in history to be playing in the Super Bowl against each other.
I'm glad we waited to touch on it though, because I kind of agree. I don't want to
no, it's not a major story. It's a neat factoid.
There's a couple of them though, because the Andy Reid storyline is the same way. The Andy Reid storyline 5 years ago was way better than it is now, and they didn't meet in the Super Bowl, but it was before he had one, before the Eagles had one. That's a great storyline. They both have one now, so somebody's getting a second. That's all.
Right, everyone's happy, and we can be friendly with Andy Reid at this point in time.
It actually amplifies the Kelsey storyline a little more because of the fact that it is a first-time brothers against each other kind of thing.
Right. So there's a petition online with more than 100,000 signatures.
Oh, I know. I've seen this. This is
great. Mama Kelsey should be the one who flips the coin.
Do you also like? And I'm only bringing this up because of the fact like you'll get why in a second. But there's a reason why I'm bringing this part of the story up. So, did you see the story about how Jason Kelsey said that his wife is bringing her doctor with
because she's 38 weeks.
Now, I went to the same college as Jason Kelsey's wife, so I do actually know her like vaguely, like not as well as I know some of the other people I went to college with, because she was kind of in on an off year for me, like I was almost on my way out and she was coming in, kind of thing.
Right.
So it wasn't like I wasn't close with her by any stretch, but I do know her, and I like laugh every time I see anything like the post that came out on Instagram a couple weeks ago where they woke up and his daughter singing the Eagles fight song. Over the the baby monitor type thing. No, it's great, but I'm sitting here and I just laugh at because at the end he turns around and says to her, "What have we done?" And it's like, you've done nothing wrong, dude. You're raising that girl right.
What you've done is you have ensured that you can never play anywhere else. That's what you've done.
He doesn't want to play anywhere else.
No, absolutely not.
It's come back, and I love that he's not like talking about how this could be it and all that type of stuff. Like he's still talking like he's going to come back next year.
I wonder,
which I really believe he might.
I wonder if he's got the Mummers costume in the closet still.
The story was he borrowed that from somebody that his wife knows. I don't remember the whole backstory, but I hope he does still have it. It would be awesome.
I'm willing to bet that somebody's given him one if he doesn't have that one anymore.
Look, he showed up to the parade wearing that and then gave the speech that he did 5 years ago. And I turned around then and I said,
he'll never buy a drink again.
No, I said, I'll never say a bad word about him ever again. And I have not since, by the way, because he's been awesome. And not only that, but like he's one of the, like, got to be one of the most unique people that you wish you knew on a more personal level, because of the fact, like, think about what he's done this year. Like, he started a podcast this year, which is with the podcast is awesome.
With his brother.
With his brother. The podcast is awesome, by the way.
Great advertising for the podcast, by the way. I hope they bought an ad spot.
I
hope they bought an ad spot. Come on.
I mean, I'm sure they can afford it.
It would be incredible marketing.
So you got that. He recorded a Christmas album with two of his offensive line mates, which is great. Like,
you sure did.
The dude is awesome. He's such he does for his he's got I'm trying to remember, is it for his charity or is it for like the Eagles Autism Awareness charity? It might be for that. But he goes down the shore and guest bartends at a fundraiser every year. Like,
that's funny.
He is such a, like, everything he does is like it's for the people. Here's a podcast to get a better inside look at what life is like as an NFL player. Yeah. Here's a Christmas album with your favorite Eagles players just because we wanted to do it. It was a crazy idea, but we pulled it off. Here's, I'm out mingling with the people. Like,
so that whole Super Bowl 52 team is special and will be remembered in this city forever.
Well, because you never forget your first.
But in my opinion, there are 3 untouchables on that list. 3 people who will never buy a drink in Philadelphia again, who will be asked to speak at events forever and ever and ever. Amen.
So Jason Kelsey, because we already said it.
Jason Kelsey.
Nick Foles.
And
Brandon Graham.
And Doug Peterson.
Well, Doug Peterson's a good one too, but I thought you were talking players. I thought you were speaking only players.
That's fair, but no,
Brandon Graham got the strip sack, so I'm kind of saying
Brandon Graham's right there too. But I just mean in terms of guys who have cemented their spot.
Because you're starting to think about it with not knowing who emerges as the guy in this game outside of the obvious, like, of course your focus is on quarterback and coach, I think, right? Like it always is. Like if they win this Super Bowl, Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts never have to buy a drink in this city either.
By the way, Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
That's my kind of low-key pick. I know it's not a super low-key pick.
I got to tell you something, because I've seen the people posting that they've bet on this multiple times, and it's honestly
first touchdown scorer?
No, for MVP. And it's not a bad pick. A lot of people have picked Hassan Reddick.
Okay.
And it's not like the dude took over the Niner game. Sure. From a defensive standpoint, it's not a bad pick.
All right. let's get over to hockey.
Yeah, we need
I
to
think
talk
that's
hockey.
enough
We
of
spent
football.
20 minutes on the NFL.
Okay, do you have a final score for me or no?
No, I'm not going there.
I'm gonna go.
And
I'm
you know,
gonna go
it-
35-24 Birds.
I do think that it's like somehow or other. I do think it's gonna maybe not take this many points per se, but I do think they're gonna have to get to 30 to feel in control.
Decent. Yeah, I agree.
Like I do think that there's an element where they've got to find a way to put up 30 somehow again, because they've already done it twice in the playoffs. So they'd have to do it again, and then you know what I will say about the score really quick to wrap it up, because I didn't give a score on here for last week. But I watched the game at my in-laws last week and went over there and I told my brother-in-law, I said right before kickoff, and I went 27-20 because I really did think it was going to be close. But in my mind, my thought process was somebody
thinking Brock Purdy gets hurt in the first quarter. So.
Well, I wasn't thinking that, but in my mind, you know what my thought process was, honestly? Somebody's going to get 3 touchdowns in the game. Not individually, but one team's going to get 3 touchdowns.
Right.
And the team that finds the third touchdown's winning the game. And the Eagles had the third touchdown by the end of the first half. And they didn't give up 2 either, by the way. They gave up 1. So, but it still held, right? The team that got to the third touchdown was going to win the game. And yes, they lost a quarterback that would have been able to get them maybe a couple more, potentially, but they got to the third touchdown.
And I don't want to hear any guff from anybody if Mahomes is compromised about this being an asterisk Super Bowl, didn't go through anybody, blah, blah, blah.
No, I would say let's see how both sides, like, because I don't feel that way coming out of the Niner game. They just dominated defensively.
Right. So Kevin, did you watch the All-Star game? We gotta get out of this.
No, I did watch yesterday. I did not watch. God, we're having problems. All right. I did watch yesterday. I did not watch the skills competition.
Okay.
And I'm kind of proud of that in hindsight.
Right. You mentioned this before the show that you saw people ripping it. And here's the thing. You don't have to like the All-Star game and the skills competition and everything that goes involved with it. You don't even have to watch it, quite frankly, because, sure, in my opinion, I think people take it far too seriously. I think it is a fun event. I think you have some history with your accuracy shooting, your hardest shot, your fastest skater, your classics. Mm-hmm. You can argue over the new competitions, the pitch and puck, I think, and then the other one was the one on the beach. I don't remember what they called it.
Splash shot.
Splash shot, that's right. And you can argue about those being, good games or effective or whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. But I give them credit for trying. I give them credit.
Oh, they try, all right.
I give them credit for not just sticking everybody into those 4 core events and saying, here you go. I like that they're trying to innovate. I like that they're trying new things. I like that they're trying to implement with the local community and work with them and do things on the beach and do things at the local golf course. And it's good for the growth of the game. It's good for community outreach.
It's intended to be anyway.
And it's supposed to be fun.
Right.
It's not supposed to be a serious competition. It's not supposed to be the Olympics. Let's be honest.
Are you talking about the whole weekend?
Half the guys are the whole weekend. Half the guys are sauced the whole weekend, and good for them. But we're not here to cut throats and win billions of dollars. We're having some fun hanging out with the All-Stars.
I don't know.
Okay, do you think every team should have a representative?
I don't know. I understand why they do it.
Okay.
The same way they do it in Major League Baseball. I understand why they do it. But I just I'd have to go back and look up every team that was every All-Star team from each conference that was playing when I was kind of getting into that video game age. Okay. And you started to really know everybody, and it was, and they had the same willingness over the course of, let's just say a 15. I want to call it a 15-year span roughly, because I'm going from let's say 98-ish to 2012-ish. Let's just call it, and maybe it was a little bit beyond that this went on, but I'll stop there just for sake of argument. Where they've tried things that have actually been okay, that people did find cool, because there's people who suggest these things 20 years later, off of, or 10 years later off of what they've tried. You had, and by the way, the reverse retro nod to the jerseys of the 90s
on Skills Night was great.
No. I'm talking about
on the actual game itself. Oh yeah, the jerseys were
the jerseys that in reference to the ones from the 90s. Very cool idea.
Those jerseys looked so freaking good. Good.
The only thing I didn't love the color scheme per se. I know why the color scheme was. Don't get me wrong. I get that that's a Miami thing. Don't get me wrong. I just didn't love the color scheme being so equal. Like, they differentiated the conference.
They looked a little too similar on the ice.
Yes.
I agree.
You had guys passing to the other team.
Yeah, they were a little. That one is a valid criticism. I think they could have been a little more bold with the colors.
Because outside of white and black, the mint green and the hint
pastel
of
pink,
right? It just blended too easily. Like,
that's fair.
You can't tell
in a white arena with white boards and yeah. No,
but beside the point. Like, I thought the nod to the 90s style jerseys
individually, they look incredible.
Yes. But I thought that the nod was cool. But I'd have to go back and look at those rosters from those teams because just to make sure that I don't recall every team getting a representative in those times.
Well, they played a full game, right?
Which to be honest, that's one of the.
But they invited 20 people from each conference. I'm willing to bet every team had a representative.
Yeah, but there were dynasties at that time. Like, you're not going to tell me that in the 90s you didn't have the Detroit Red Wings sending Lidstrom and Yzerman and Fedorov and Shanahan, and it didn't make a difference.
I'm gonna pick a random year and take a look.
Like, honestly, give me the 98 All-Star Game.
Okay, I looked up 2003.
All right, that's fair.
Oh, it's funny. That was also in Sunrise, home of the Florida Panthers. The game. Show me the rosters. Man, Ken Hitchcock was the assistant coach for the Eastern Conference.
He would have been coaching the Flyers then, I guess.
Yes.
2003? Yeah, absolutely.
Starting goalie Nikolai Habibulin.
Okay. Yeah, but that was when Tampa was good.
Your defense pair was Scott Stevens and Sandis Ozolinsh. Your first line
in the East?
Yeah. For the Florida
for?
Panthers.
That's who he was playing for at that time? I didn't remember that. I always remembered him as a Duck and member of the Colorado Avalanche.
Your 03 your first line is wild here on the Eastern Conference. Your center is Jeremy Roenick for the Philadelphia Flyers.
Okay.
Your right wing is Alexei Kovalev for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Your left wing is Jaromir Jagr for
the New York Rangers.
The Washington Capitals.
Washington. That was right.
Yep. Chara from the Senators.
Jagr playing with the Rangers was a little later because Hank was in the league by then.
Right. Tom Pody from the New York Rangers made it. I think every team had a representative. Tampa, Florida, Atlanta, Ottawa, Boston, Islanders, Tampa, Jersey, Ottawa, Washington, Boston, Buffalo, Carolina. I think that's everybody.
It probably is, but
right.
Well, then star power was maybe not Tom Pody. I didn't exactly think of his name when you say All-Star, but nonetheless.
And for the record, the Detroit Red Wings sent one player. It looks like they sent Sergei Fedorov in 2003. But I know that they were kind of old by then. So
by that point, you didn't have Yzerman anymore. Shanahan was. I don't think Shanahan was playing in Detroit at that point. He might have been out of Detroit after the 2002 year. So I think he might have been done. Or you know what I mean? Like, he was not on that team anymore. Didn't they still have Dominik Hasek at that point?
No, they would have.
Hasek was on the 2002 team. You said it was 2003, so
yeah, I'm not sure. Okay.
Either way.
Yeah. Regardless, what do you think? What do you think about the format, the 3-on-3 tournament?
That's where I was going with this, though, because when you look at the list, like, you gave a couple of names and you're like, oh, they were an all-star at one point or whatever.
Right.
But when you play a full game, there's a little bit more defense to it than like, hey, this is 5-on-5 normal game.
Right.
You need a legitimate roster.
Right.
Like I kind of cracked a joke, but it turned out to be exactly the case because somebody said as much later. What team was it? There was one team out there. Maybe it was the Metro team. It could have been that had, or well, actually, I'll do you one better because this was mentioned and I did remember hearing it. There were only 6 defensemen in the entire
Pool?
group of All-Stars.
Really?
Well, at least 2 teams only had 1.
That's friggin' funny. Yeah, we talked about
So
in the group
forwards
chat.
were
We talked about
defense.
Kevin Hayes playing defense,
which Johnny Gaudreau confirmed. Like,
well, I mean, it makes the most sense.
well,
Like
Gaudreau even said between me and Panarin, who he's probably the
who's
most,
playing
like,
defense.
Right, Hayes
right.
is probably the most defensive minded of all 3. So putting him back there made a lot of sense. I gave a little bit too much credit to Rod Brindamore on that one, and maybe the players just decided that. But whatever. He did end up with 2 assists somehow, but still,
I'll be honest. I don't think Rod did a whole lot. I don't think any of the All-Star coaches do a whole lot of work. I said, hey boys,
no, but Brindamore,
hey boys, figure out who you want to play with. I'll be drinking beer and lifting weights on the beach.
Brindamore takes it a little more seriously than some of the others do. Like he was even like they even had a thing where he was like kind of pep talking it in the locker room last year because he coached last year too. So
yeah. Turns out Carolina's a good team.
No, okay, but if you must like to go to that direction, they put Bruce Cassidy up on the screen as like the introductions for the first couple ever, and he's just standing on the bench, no tie, and you're like, that's right. This is a just chilling moment. Exactly.
That man's having fun. That man has been to Miami.
And I can tell you that. Look, if maybe Brindamore takes it to a level of seriousness, and of course his team wasn't even in the final anyway, but Jim Montgomery just looked like he was having a ball, and maybe that's because he's back in the league and he's trying to,
sure.
You're not trying to. He's just enjoying everything along with him. He's
why wouldn't you be?
Well, right. He's coaching the best team in the league to begin with, which we're going to get
might be coaching the best team in a while,
right? But he just seemed like he was having a ball with the fact that, think about it for a second too. He's got 2 of his own players on the bench because he has 2 Bruins representatives because. Yep. Allmark was in goal, and Pasternak was playing. And in the meantime, you're like, oh, by the way, Mitch Marner's on the team, and Dylan Larkin's on the team, and I got both Kachuk brothers.
By the way, Mitch Marner's breakaway challenge little skit thing. He came out in like the Miami Vice, like the white blazer, and it's a nice touch.
I was a big fan. I didn't really see as much of that one. I was a pretty big fan of Pasternak going with the Happy Gilmore there. That was pretty fun.
That was funny. I do think, however, we do need to mention the kind of the hockey history that happened. The Sid and Ovi.
Oh, Sid and Ovi playing together. That's
really the first significant thing they've ever done together. And it makes a lot of sense. They were rivals for a very long time. Right. It didn't seem like they particularly liked each other for most of that time.
They didn't at the beginning, and
fair enough.
In fairness, I don't know if you watched this or not. I did, but the hour before the All-Star game, they had this special on about Ovechkin's chase for the.
I ended up seeing the last 20 minutes or so.
Well, at the very beginning, or not, I don't want to say at the very beginning, but they got through because his first year, his first year would have been Sid's first year.
They were the same year because of the lockout.
Right, yeah. But there wasn't really as much to it in year number 1, I guess. I think
they were both getting their feet under. Yeah.
But if you here's the thing. If you remember Crosby back in the early days of his career, there's a reason why people don't like him here still. Because he was very he would he would complain a lot to the officials and things like that. He was a bit of a whiner when it came to stuff, and people didn't like it. I mean,
not a bit, man.
Well, no, and here's the thing, because I think both have evolved in this way. Sid was much more of that in his first few years in the league, and it made people hate him because it's you're skilled enough as it is. You don't need to be complaining about stuff like that. Number 1, and I remember watching Ovechkin celebrate every goal like he just won the Stanley Cup and thinking, that's okay, dude, you're a little over the top here.
Act like you've been, of the world, right?
Act like you've been there before. And then I also pointed out something years later that goes right along with this, by the way, because I've said on here before, because there was a point where the Flyers had a team that was just maybe even more. I don't remember which dreadful year it was, but it was one of them. But I turned around and I said something like about how scoring a goal doesn't even seem to get them excited anymore. Right, you go back, watch clips from the '90s, and guys are full arms in the air, full extension. It's
Gretzky sprinting high stepping across the ice.
Right, but I'm talking about
that's what I'm saying.
No, I'm talking about watch a clip from the Legion of Doom era Flyers, and every time John LeClaire scores a goal, his arms go straight up into the air.
Yeah.
Not like a little like whatever, no, straight up in the air, both arms. This is like whatever. So I kind of came back on that later. And it's like scoring a goal is supposed to be fun, and nobody has more fun scoring goals right now than Alex Ovechkin does. So
that's fair.
I get like, sure, you should have fun, because at some point, I give him a lot of credit for. He said something at the very end of the show that I agree with, because he sat there and he said he's not going to let himself believe it's possible until he's within like 10, because he goes, it's still too far away, and what happens if an injury happens, or what happens that, he's right. Something could happen. You never know. And you're too far away from it right now, even though he's within, by this point, he's within 80 at this point, about 80.
It's insane. It's
like 88. He's within 85. I know that he is. I think he's at 812 is what he's at. So, but still, like, I give him credit for not jumping the gun on, well, I just need 85, like or 83 or whatever it is to pass, 83 to pass him. What's 83 more? I'm going to finish with 50 this year. And, and I'll, if he gets to 55 this year, which he's already at 32, I think is what he's at or something. So like, if he adds 23 more,
it's pacing like it's going to be the end of next year or the beginning of the year after that, depending on exactly what his pace looks like.
Right.
But the breakaway challenge was really, really nice. Him and Sid just kind of passing it back and forth, and they drop it back to his kid. It's a nice little moment. The
kid ended up being a star in the night, kind of. Oh, yeah. Because it won everybody over.
As most breakaway challenges go, it wasn't the most technical shot, but they very rarely are. It doesn't really matter at this point.
I mean, and he scored on celebrity or legend goalie, Roberto Luongo is filling in. By the way, did you see how Luongo had to chirp somebody on Twitter because somebody turned around and said, "Oh, if you didn't know, he's fully committed to the Panthers now," because he showed up and did that and wore his Panthers gear and all that stuff. And Luongo chimed in and snapped back and went, "If it was in Vancouver, I'd be wearing blue and green." Like, seriously. Like,
don't take it so seriously.
It was in Florida. He got invited to do it. Just went into the Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yep. Bobby Lou, what a legend.
So, why wouldn't you line that up?
Absolutely. When they hand you that opportunity, and when you're Roberto Luongo, you absolutely say yes. Yes, please.
Sure. So, it's awesome. It's cool. So, yeah. I mean, the game was what it was. I kind of mildly paid attention to a certain degree.
Right.
To be honest, though, that is the one thing about the format that bothers me. The 3-on-3 can be fun. Don't get me wrong. Like, you're not going to see the Sid Novi stuff that we saw in a traditional format, I would say. It's a lot more difficult.
Sure.
Because you're not going to get the 2-on-0. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not going to get stuff like that.
Right.
But I think it's disappointing that you kind of had to look at the two things. Like, first of all, by the way, and I'm not trying to put anything down with this, but either they care way more or they're just better. One of the two. The Eastern Conference game was way better than the Western Conference game by a long shot. And either it's they're more talented, like they're the better conference, and it's not even close, or the other side didn't care. Although there's a reason to believe the other side didn't care as much, because did you see the stuff about Kirill Kaprizov?
Yeah, I didn't see that specifically, but I feel like
okay, I can fill you in.
I feel like every year since they've gone to the 4 teams, one team shows up like the Capitals showed up to the 2020 bubble. They just don't care. Well,
here's
they're there to drink and have fun in a hotel for 4 days.
Here's the Kirill Kaprizov story then for you, okay? Because apparently he backed out of the skill he was supposed to do like 3 minutes before, and then had no points in the game that he played for the All-Star.
No.
Or actually, I shouldn't say the game, because he was in both, I think.
Okay.
He's on the Central, right?
Yeah.
So he played in both. I don't think he had a single point. So people even said, if you want to know how little he cares.
Yeah.
I hear you, but if you want to know,
well, no, I'm not saying it's a problem for him. I mean, it is what it is. But you have to try to not score in an All-Star game, especially when it's 3-on-3 like this.
Depends. I think either they actively did in the first half of most of those games, or goaltending was a little bit better than we actually expect.
Yeah, the goaltending was pretty decent. Those guys cared.
Nobody told Certainly nobody told Linus Ullmark that it was just a little exhibition because he was really trying.
He
You know what, though? When you're in your first game and you're probably never expected to get there a little bit, especially as a goalie.
I think you're leading the
You're
NHL
leading the league
in
in
wins.
everything.
Right.
But yeah, like my problem with the 3-on-3 tournament feel of it is that it's way too like, and I saw a couple people saying this, and you're not. And you're kind of right along the lines of what you were saying with this, and you're not wrong for it. But like the idea is that if they would just stop telling them that once you get through the first game, if you get eliminated, then the bar's waiting for you, and you don't have to play in the second game, then yeah, you'd lose too, right? Like
and that's the thing.
But my problem from a fan experience point is, shouldn't you go and get 60 minutes of Sid Novi, not 20? And they're gone. They go, like, I'm serious. They don't come out for the first portion of the game anyway, so they're not introduced at the same time as the rest of the All-Stars. They play their 20 minutes, they lose, and then they go back in, they get undressed, they do media, and they can get out of there if they want.
And they're at the bar by 3 or whatever time it was, 5.
Right. But either way, and I think that's a problem. Because from a fan experience, if you were sitting down to tune in, people used to care to watch this game because you guys have the best teams playing with each other for 60 minutes to make game. I think better moments come from things like Owen Nolan calling his shot for a hat trick, pointing it out and going, I'm going to score on one of the best goalies in the world right now, right here, boom, coming at you, and then he does it. And that lives on way more than I did something in the 3-on-3. And by the way, I got to leave after like 20 minutes.
So I see both sides to it. Like I like until you're really gonna punish guys, there's not a whole lot you can do. Because at a certain point they'll just skip it. Like we saw it out of Ovi a couple of times where he's like, yeah, you're going to give me a 1-game suspension so I can just stay on vacation an extra 2 days? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. But at the same time, I do also just like the 3-on-3. I like, nobody wants to watch 10 guys skate around in a pack for 2 hours.
Right.
And when you're not hitting and you're not really trying, like there's a little cash on the line, but not enough to matter to these guys. It's hard to get guys motivated. It's hard to make guys care about a game that has no bearing on their season, that doesn't, like if they get hurt, like that's the thing. Like at a certain point, you're looking at almost going like the NFL route because the NFL going to flag football.
But the NFL going to flag football is comical in a sense because I understand you don't want people to get hurt and serious injury could take way longer than it needs to. I get that. But if you really don't try to hit for hurt, if you will, every player who's in the Pro Bowl for the NFL doesn't have a game for the rest of their season. And no, hold on. And the guys who make the Super Bowl don't go.
No, of course. Right.
No, but my point is, your point has merit for the NHL when it's like, hey, by the way, we still have 30 games to go. Nobody wants to get hurt, and this is not the ultimate prize. It's nice to be honored, but so be it. And there's, so I don't know. I just remember there being way more interest in the All-Star game when you could include maybe a few more. Like, I think that you have to be way more selective. With I don't remember there being fan votes for we've picked every team's representative. Now let's let the fans vote in people so that you can get, and no disrespect in saying this, but so you can get, 3 Colorado Avalanche players, or Stuart Skinner's going to play for, and represent the Oilers when you could, when Zach Hyman's up there in points, or something like that. You know what I mean? Just pick the best players in the game at the moment. If you have to pick a representative from every team, then pick a representative from every team. I get that. But just pick the best players in the game at the moment and have them come and represent their teams. Because do you think that anybody didn't want to see Sid and Ovi play on a line together? That's part of the allure of putting an Eastern Conference team together and saying, look, there's nobody else coming from Pittsburgh this year. There's nobody else coming from Washington this year. These are the two guys, and we're going to put them together, and it's going to be cool. And in the like, you know, like the thing that bothers me about it a little bit too is you could see to an extent some of the 3-on-3 strategy that's implemented in the regular games thrown into this, which takes away from some of the excitement too. There was
a little bit of the circling back in the puck possession.
Right. It just feels like there's an element of it where it's like that. Not going to let the. Why do you think I just brought up the thing about either the Eastern Conference two teams were trying way harder to make this the spectacle that it could be, or
I'm pretty sure the Western Conference teams were trying to get to the bar.
Maybe, but my point is that that's boring. Like, I'm sorry, skating around in circles, circling back to your own zone regularly is kind of boring. I mean, it just is, and it seems like it's like.
But what's the solution? Like, do you go baseball and give home ice advantage in the Stanley Cup final to the winner?
No, you don't. That's not no, you don't. But I don't know if there is a good solution. Part of the solution, do you want to know one?
All-Star games suck. That's the solution.
No, I'll give you a good solution because a lot of people have suggested it, and maybe they're right about it because it shows a little bit of personality for a change. Bring back the draft.
I love that.
You pick the All-Stars as a league. You pick the All-Stars, and it doesn't matter what team they play for. Then you get a combination because what happens when you draft is that's your chance to create new storylines. This is your chance to put Sid and McKinnon together because they came from the same hometown. This is your chance to put McDavid and Crosby on the same
This
team.
is your chance
or
to
McDavid
put Ovi back in the green room begging not to get drafted so we can win a
or
car.
to put McDavid and Matthews together on the same team, right? Like there's something to two guys
put
who
McDavid
are the
and Eichel on
of
the same team.
There's something to the two players being captains of their team and then picking players based off of who they think is good. That creates a little element of who's good in this league to each other.
I even still like, if you want to keep the 3-on-3 format, if you want to keep the tournament so that you can still have the Fall Out Boy concert in the second intermission, have a 4-team tournament. That would be pretty freaking
pick
cool.
4 captains and say pick.
And you have a fan vote leader from each division. If you want to implement your fan vote, have a fan vote leader from each division. Boom.
Right. In other words, everybody would vote by division. Whoever wins,
there's your captain.
Sure. And then the thing is that depending on who wins the fan vote, then everybody else is up for grabs, so that you can still get that.
Sure, they can still select their all-star pool.
Right. I like that. I think that there's because here's the other thing too. If you've got and I'm just using the Western Conference as an example here, if McDavid won a fan vote and Makar won a fan vote, so they're the two captains of the two respective Western Conference sides, right? Let's just say that.
Right.
Wouldn't it be fun if McDavid turned around and said, "I'm taking McKinnon, just so Cale Makar can't play with him"?
Yep.
Like guys do that. Guys will sit there and go, "I'm going to take away his teammate."
Absolutely.
And so.
If Sid's not, or if Nate's not a captain, he will be a very high draft pick because people want to counter draft him from Cale Makar and from Sid.
Right. So I think that's not even say that's an element of it, but I think you need to try to figure out that's one way to do it. I think it's better to have those. I mean, I hear you with the 3-on-3 thing again because then that requires an elimination to an extent.
I think it's a little more game friendly, for the actual game.
I suppose. I mean,
I think the 5-on-5 All-Star Game sucks, quite frankly.
It probably does in today's day and age. I hear you. It's just, I think that there's there's got to be a better way to allow for both teams to, or all the groups to play more than just 20, not even say to play more than 20 minutes, but to play more than just one game and you're eliminated. Honestly, then I'll tell you what, because it picks up in the second half every time.
Sure.
All of a sudden, so give them 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
And
No,
just
10 minutes.
make it a rush period. Just one
Well,
period.
And hear me out as to why. 10 minutes, and all four teams will play each other at least once.
Oh, like a round robin.
Yes, and then the two teams with the best record at the end come out and play in the final, and you can make that 20. And does it make the event a little longer? Yes, it does. I hear you. But you can do the exact same thing.
And then do the concert before your finale.
Because there's something there's something that's lost when you sit there and you go, the Pacific and the Metro just got knocked out. So you just took Sid Novi out of it. You took McDavid out of it after 20 minutes.
That's fair.
Like,
no, I get that logic. I think,
as far as I'm concerned, they don't even see each other.
I like the 10-minute period round robin idea. I like that a lot.
Like, I think that what you need to do to entertain people is that, okay, fine, there's such a thing as a final, but then at least every team playing gets 30 minutes.
Well, and I also think it would be good to stagger out the players leaving, just for media purposes. It makes it a little easier on your media staff. You interview half the players as they're leaving, and then you get to do the other half. You got to respect the back end logistics side of that, right?
Right.
All right.
But either way.
All right.
So where do we want to go from here?
I was going to say, anything else out of the All-Star game? I thought it was a fun little weekend. The Kachuk brothers had some great chemistry.
Yeah,
they were lighting each other up all night.
It's an attempt to do, to try to do some things to market the game. By the way, something else that kind of just caught me is kind of funny. They had this like beach festival thing or something that was supposed to be part of the thing or whatever, and it couldn't open yesterday because of the weather. Like, shocker, there was bad weather in Florida.
Right.
Like, come on.
There's nothing you can do about that. There's only so much you can do.
I understand that, but it's just like, no, it's just knowing the situation a little bit. Like, you had to close the whole thing down completely. You had no plan for that at all.
Right.
It was just closed. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like...
I get it, but you can't expect the NHL to do things well. It's not like they're the fourth biggest sports league in North America.
But that's the thing, right? Like a perfect, and this is why the draft thing was a perfect example of this. People thought the draft was cool, right?
Yeah.
The NHL needs to do what they think isn't cool, and everybody else will find it cool. Because it seems like every time they try to do something that they think is cool, everybody else watching sits there later and goes, "This is lame. Nice try."
Right.
But lame. Like, that's the thing. So all the NHL needs to do is tap into what they don't think is cool, and everybody else will probably find it cool.
It's just it's so crazy it just might work.
All right. Do you want to get on to some first half stuff, because this is like a good time to we did the Flyers first half.
I think the biggest story from the first half is where the playoff picture's at, so I think we should go to that.
Oh, you want to go to the playoff picture?
Yeah. So looking at the Eastern Conference, they're all tied together. We're gonna talk about individuals within. So So right now, currently in the Eastern Conference, the playoff teams are Boston, Toronto, Tampa in the Atlantic, Carolina, New Jersey, New York, Rangers in the Metropolitan, and then your wild card is Washington and Pittsburgh. You got three teams kind of in the playoff race in the East that are currently outside. It's Buffalo, the Islanders, and the Florida Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Which of those three bottom teams do you think is most likely to make it into the playoff picture?
The team that has the fewest number of games played out of them, Buffalo.
The Buffalo Sabres. Okay.
I'm not saying I want to amend that answer immediately after I say it, but the hope is, because Tage Thompson was hurt late, literally week of, he was supposed to be at the All-Star game. He had to be removed because he wasn't able to play, but he was literally hurt, I think, on Monday of last week. So it's unfortunate. So if his injury is not too serious and he can come back, that's a big reason why they would make it.
Okay.
But they're a team that's got a little bit of swagger right now. And I think that Pittsburgh is vulnerable at this moment. I mean, Washington sure is too, but you look at what they've got. Pittsburgh's got one game in hand on them, but they've got 3 on Washington, and they're 4 points behind Washington. There's a path, and I can see that team making some noise to just be around, because I think that they're feeling it. I think they're feeling slighted, to be honest. I don't think people are legitimately giving them a shot even now. And I think they take it personally, and they want to. And look, they've got a reason to do it. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2011, I believe, right?
Right.
So I'm sure that some of the guys that are there are wearing that a little bit. Like, look, we got to snap this 12-year drought now, and I think they're ready to try for it. Sure. So I do think I will say the Islanders are a very interesting team now because when you follow up everything with one now
That's
that the
my team.
Yeah, now that the Bo Horvat trade went in, let's see what happens with that.
Man, did we talk about that on last week's show? I don't remember.
No, because it didn't happen until Monday.
Yeah, right. So the New York Islanders trade for Bo Horvat. It's Atu Ratu, Anthony Beauvillier, and a first-round pick going the other way.
Conditional, I believe. So it's
okay.
I think it's top. It's either top 10 or top 15 protected.
I think it's top 10 protected.
And if that were to happen, it would slide to next year, no protection.
Right. But this is the year where it matters because 2023 is the deep draft and blah blah blah. But
it doesn't make a difference anyway because obviously the goal is for it to not even be close to the top 10.
I think and that's what I think is going to happen. I think the New York Islanders.
You think they're going to make the playoffs and it won't matter?
I think they have made a significant offensive upgrade. Anthony Beauvillier is a nice little player. He's 25. He was in their everyday lineup.
Do you see them making the playoffs maybe along with a Buffalo and knocking the two perennials out?
Maybe. I think that's a real there's a real chance that happens.
Because I think that the now that Bo Horvat's part of the Islanders and Buffalo being what they've been this year and kind of being this underdog team a little bit, and Pittsburgh and Washington and continuing to get older.
And never, ever, ever doubt the Rangers' ability to choke down the stretch, too.
Here's the problem, though. There's a big difference between the 27, 14, and 8 record that the Rangers have and a plus 28 goal differential.
I get you.
And Washington and Pittsburgh with their records very close.
I think Washington and Pittsburgh are certainly much more vulnerable teams.
Let's put it this way. Pittsburgh's one of those classic teams right now where the record fools you a little bit because they're 24, 16, and 9, which sounds really good to say, but then when you do
it's 24 and 25?
Exactly.
Right.
Like even Washington can at least claim to 27 and 26.
Right.
That
is fair. No, I certainly think Washington and Pittsburgh are the more vulnerable teams, but the Rangers, I still don't believe in the Rangers long term. They're
okay.
If Shesterkin isn't sparkling,
right,
there's always a chance they struggle. But that being said, I do think the Islanders get in. I think Bo Horvat. I think that is an incredible ad for that team.
It's a really good ad. That listen, I think that it's one of these cases where multiple things can be true. It was a really good ad. It was a high asking price.
Yeah.
I think Vancouver did well there too. I think you can argue that both sides got something of value.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think that Vancouver has the possibility of it being the long-term winner of the trade if Horvat doesn't make this more than a rental thing.
Well, and the other part of that is when this trade occurred. And this trade occurred about a month before the deadline.
Right.
Which gives the Islanders a 4-week window to try to improve their playoff position, see how Bo Horvat fits into their system, talk to Bo Horvat about a long-term contract extension. And if those things don't come to fruition, if either A, he doesn't fit, or B, doesn't want to sign there, or kind of any number of factors, they can still flip him. They can flip him. And maybe they get more. Maybe he comes out and tears it up on the island, and even the team loses some games, and it's not going to work out, and he doesn't want to sign there, and blah, blah, blah. But if he plays well, he can jack the price up.
Well, sure. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. When's the last time... I know it used to happen all the time, but when's the last time we saw a player get traded twice in the same season? Other than one of those insta trades. I think Nolan Patrick was technically a Nashville Predator for 10 seconds.
Yeah, but I don't count that. That wasn't in season.
Right.
That was off season. So
you're right. That's fair.
Because that I think happens way more regularly.
Oh yeah.
Didn't that happen with and it was off season again, so it's not going to count in this one either. But didn't that happen with Mike Hoffman?
I believe so. Yeah, he was a San Jose Shark.
Right. He was for a minute. He was in San Jose, and then ended up in.
Didn't they play a video package for him?
They might have.
I think San Jose flashed a thank you message with the first time Mike Hoffman was there.
Either way, I mean, But it's an like the playoff picture in the East is an interesting dynamic because there is a little bit of a race. I'm not trying to say there isn't in the West. There is a bit of a race when.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten to the West.
Sure. Well, and I think the reason I'm saying it that way is because I don't think that Buffalo's fourth in the Atlantic Division. I don't think anybody's making up a 9-point deficit. So the top three in the Atlantic are pretty well set.
Oh, yeah, that's locked. Tampa's going to play Toronto.
And I would say the same about the top two in the Metro.
Yes.
The Rangers are close enough that could be shuffled out. I get that.
But the Carolina Hurricanes might as well
Carolina
have the Y
and New Jersey,
next to their
I think,
name.
are locked into the top two spots as well, kind of.
Carolina might as well have the Y next to their name at this point.
Yeah, Carolina's really turned it on in the last couple of weeks.
They're good, man.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're good.
So I do like the I mean, let's put it this way: we said it the other week, and we're not going to rehash a ton of our Flyer stuff here, but technically they're in this thing. I mean, they're 6 points out of a playoff spot, so technically they're part of this, just like Ottawa can be. Doesn't mean that they're a good candidate. That's the hard part of getting behind this type of stuff. If the Flyers were not 6 points back, but let's say 5 or let's say they were 5 or 4 points back, and even if you're 4 points back, it's not insurmountable when
you have 30 games left.
No, it's not that. It's when you're not 5 teams down.
Right.
If you're the second team out, if you're where the Islanders are right now, and let's be realistic with the Islanders. Let's not look at Pittsburgh as the margin, they're 2 points out of a playoff spot, because there's 3 games difference there. But let's look at where Washington is and say, okay, they're 5 points back of Washington with a game in hand, like the Islanders are. Is that insurmountable when you only have to pass Buffalo and Pittsburgh or Washington to get into the playoffs?
Not insurmountable. Yeah,
right. That
tougher.
makes more sense. That's easier to accomplish than being where the Flyers are and saying, well, we're tied with Ottawa and 3 back of Florida and 4 back of the Islanders and 5 back of Buffalo and 6 back. Too many to hop.
And also, we've played a lot of games.
Well, played a lot of games, but they're not any different. I mean, they've got teams in front of them that have played one fewer, or one more, I should say, or maybe a couple more that you're okay, it's doable. But I can't look at the Flyers then look at Pittsburgh and say, oh yeah, that's an easy gap to make. It's not.
Right. No, and we don't expect them to.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying you got to kind of come up with a cutoff line. I think you did it well. I think after Florida, I think is where you cut it off.
Right. Yep. And there's a chance Ottawa makes a run. God forbid Josh Norris gets back, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that's
No, he's out for the year.
Oh, he is? Okay.
He came back and then I think almost immediately re-injured himself. And that time once it came back, it was his season's over.
And then moving over to the West real quick. In the Central, you have Dallas, Winnipeg, Minnesota. In the Pacific, you have Seattle, the Kings, and Vegas. In the wild card, you have Edmonton and Colorado. And then really just Calgary and Nashville still in it. And even Nashville is just kind of clinging on at this point. They've played only 48 games. They're not as out of it. But that's really the only race there. Calgary and Colorado are currently tied in points. Calgary has played 2 more games.
Nashville's an interesting team in this, and I'll tell you why. I'm not saying it means they're going to make the playoffs, but their path to a playoff spot is all over the place.
Yeah,
they're 3 back of a playoff spot if you're looking at Colorado. They have 2 games in hand on Edmonton, and they're 6 back of them, so there's definitely a path to be right back in it with Edmonton.
Absolutely.
But Edmonton is 2 points ahead of the team they'd be chasing for 3rd place in their own division.
Right.
Who also has the same number of games played and is 4 points ahead. So it's all over the map. I mean, if Minnesota slips
realistically, Calgary's only 6 points out of leading the division. And that's not entirely impossible by the end of the season.
And realistically, I'm not saying this is impossible, but Nashville is only 12 points out of the division lead themselves. And we're talking about them being out of the whole race.
Yeah. The West is wide open.
Which kind of fuels my point about the All-Star Game, where it was maybe one of these conferences is just way better than the other.
Yeah, well, and also the Western Conference, those guys are a little more worried about the playoff race.
Can we pump the brakes about something for a second and just bring this to attention for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. How many All-Stars did the Dallas Stars have?
One?
Yeah, Jason Robertson.
Jason
How
Robertson.
many did Winnipeg have at 65 points?
One.
Two.
Okay.
Connor Hellebuck and Josh Morrissey.
Oh, Josh Morrissey. Right,
but
right.
None of their forwards, not Kyle Connor, who scores at a good clip.
Right.
None of them. How many did Seattle have?
One.
They had one representative who couldn't play because he got hurt.
So none.
And they never replaced him with somebody on his own team. So none, basically.
Feels bad for the second year.
It does. Right.
In the new market.
How many did LA have?
Was it just Fiala?
Yep.
Okay.
My point being, the two teams that had the most representatives were your two wild cards.
But it's your defending Stanley Cup champion and the best player in the world.
Right, but it's also very heavily fan voted.
Because
only one guy got in from each team, and anybody else was a fan vote.
Right.
Okay. I go to the other side and I sit there now. And granted, Carolina only had one as well. I get that, but Boston had two, and they're the best team in the league. Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually funny because in a roundabout way, the Islanders had two representatives, even though they didn't.
Did you see the clip of Elias Pettersson and Bo Horvat?
Yes, I did. I thought that was
one
cool.
last time. Oh, come on. Come on. It was weird seeing Bo Horvat wearing Islanders stuff, playing for the Pacific team. It was very, very strange.
Oh, I know. I hear you.
Very bizarre and not something you see very often. It felt almost like a John Scott situation.
A little bit, yeah.
But, all right. Quick update. Even though the Flyers aren't going to get him, I'm going to give us a quick little Connor Bedard update because it's been a couple of weeks since we did that.
Well, hold on. You can go ahead. We can do
I'll look that up. Yep.
No, we can do that, but I feel like that this is one of the stories of the first half that I have in here, too. Because can we talk about Connor McDavid's point total?
Stupid. Still stupid.
I know, but that's the point. Like, it's a huge... He's got something like, outside of his own teammate, just to make things clear, outside of his own teammate, I think he's got something like 20 points on everybody else.
It's something crazy.
And I just want to pull that up because...
He's got 92 points. The next closest is Pasternak and Kucherov tied with 72. He is 20 points clear of the next non-teammate because Draisaitl has 76. But he's even 16 points clear of Draisaitl at this point.
It's nuts. He is incredible.
He's a mutant.
Right. By the way, your Bedard update is 37 games played, 44 goals, 90 points.
Yeah. Did you hear, by the way, that the Regina Pats played a game in the Saddle Dome and it was sold out?
Oh, against the Hitmen. Yes, I did.
19,000 people or whatever, 17,000 people,
yes,
whatever it was, because sold out for a WHL game?
Because, okay, so... Look, not that there's many other sporting events going on in Calgary. I get this, but the Calgary Hitmen share the Saddle Dome with the Calgary Flames.
Right.
As such, when a player of that ilk comes in, who everybody knows is going to be a star. This
is a chance to see him in juniors.
Let's put it this way. I'm trying to remember who exactly said this. It was either Crosby or McDavid. I can tell you that much. And I think it was Crosby because it was one of those two. But somebody even said there's no weaknesses.
No. The average
the best active players in the NHL are already telling you what a star this kid's going to be.
The average ticket to that game was $16. That is the cheapest you're going to be able to see Connor Bedard for a very, very long time.
Probably.
And
I don't know who's I don't know who's going to get him, but whenever he comes into town next year, it's going to be a treat.
It's going to be sold out, guaranteed.
It should be.
Yep.
So anyway, but back to McDavid for a second. For a guy who's putting up ridiculous numbers all the time. So you already touched on it. By the way, I love that he's got a round number of 50 games played.
Yeah.
Just so that this way you can already do the law of averages here kind of with this.
Right.
92 points in 50 games, 41 goals in 50. When was the last time that anybody got that close to 50 and 50?
I don't know.
Right. Scary.
Yeah.
It's scary how good he is.
How did Stamkos do the year he scored? Wait, he scored 70? He scored 60.
65, I thought.
65,
was what he had
okay.
Maybe is what it was, or something like that. Or I know Ovechkin's had a 65 at some point.
Right, those have to be the closest, but I think Ovi did his towards the end of the season in a big bunch. But
for perspective, and I want to be careful with how we not phrase this, but with how we kind of position this, because much like anybody else who we could review their numbers over their career, there's some skewed numbers in the fact that the league has lost some games over the years. We know this.
Sure.
So I hate doing career highs and things like that when you know that they were on pace for better in these years that didn't play 82. I get it. But in all seriousness, his career high in goals is 40. But he's never had a 50-goal season yet.
Well, that's about to change.
Oh, it's definitely going to change because that
might change by the end of February.
It might change, by the end of February, it might change. Not 50, but he'll have his career high by the end of next week.
Right.
He's at 41. He needs to get to 45. He'll have his career high by the end of next week at this rate. Oh, by the way, what is his career high in points? 123. He's at 92. He needs 41
points. He's going to smash that.
Yes.
He got 100 points in the 48-game season. Hello? I think he ended up with like 102. But hello?
Oh, you mean what? Do you mean the 58 or 56?
The 56. I'm sorry. How many did he end up with?
He had 33 goals and 105 points.
105. Okay. In a 56-game season. Are you freaking kidding me?
By the way, and that's why I said caveat, because if his career high legitimately is the 44 goals and the 123 points, in 56 games he was going to have 19 more points and probably 12 more goals in the remaining 26 games that they didn't play that year. Like, come on.
The kid is stupid. It's crazy.
Like, I'm just like, it's what's making me laugh is and it's funny because this year more than ever, he's not even the most prolific goal scorer. Like, we know him as the playmaker.
Right.
So he's not even at 300 career goals yet, 8 years into his career. Like, as a if he was scoring, if he was scoring at Ovechkin rates and doing 50, like Matthews is going to get
500 by now.
I should go look up Austin Matthews numbers with 2 years less.
Yeah.
Or a year less in the league and see that the goal number is probably higher.
Probably.
You know what I mean? But his point total, McDavid's point total for, what is this? That's 5 soon to be 6 100-point seasons, and he would have had a 7th if COVID didn't hit it in 2020 when it did.
Austin Matthews has 284 goals.
So he has 4 more in one less season.
Yep.
And he's probably missed more time. How many games played?
454.
Okay, so that's about a season less. Okay, that makes sense then, because McDavid missed half of his rookie year, obviously.
And Matthews has probably missed more cumulative time.
I guess so. Yeah, I didn't think that the
he's
I didn't
had
think that the wrist
stuff.
But I didn't think it held him out as much. I just thought it held him quiet.
He's had a couple other things over his career.
I thought he had the game. I thought he had the games played, not the. But still,
he's missed 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
But either way, that's impressive, is it not?
Oh no, absolutely.
4 goals more in 80 some odd games less.
Austin Matthews is stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it shows you the number, the goal scorer that he is compared to McDavid, the point guy. At this rate, because McDavid's got nearly half of a year to keep going here, he's very similarly, because let's remember something. We're saying 8 years in the league. He just turned 26, 2 weeks ago.
Theoretically, he's got 10 years left.
I would say more. I take these guys until I take a guy like him who's probably got that skill level and say
Sid's still pumping it out.
What's it going to be what's it going to be when he's 40? Because get ready for that. And that's why I've said, if you assume that he's got, let's put it this way, you want to give him 10 more years, I'll give him even 12. He'll be 38 by his 20th year. If he keeps going at the rate he's going, do you think in the next 12 years he's not going to be able to put up 1,200 points and be the second player in NHL history with 2,000?
Probably.
That's the way
I think it's a real possibility, especially if the game continues in the direction it's going, opening up more points.
And we couldn't the guy couldn't play in the All-Star game for more than 20 minutes. Sorry, I had to do it again. I had to throw that jab.
All right. And on that note, we'll get out of here. We are going to be taking next Sunday off in observance of Super Bowl Sunday. I guess there's some Flyers games in the meantime too. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
I can run down what games we're kind of missing here as we get ready for that a little bit, because they're back effective, almost effective immediately. this week?
Yeah, they're back. They're back Monday against the Islanders. Edmonton, Nashville, Seattle to finish up a home trip, homestand. Then they go on the road and play Seattle and Vancouver. We'll be back
Seattle
on
in the
19th.
Western Canada trip.
Yep, but we'll be back on the 19th, kind of mid trip there to talk about that.
Yep, and then it's a really interesting structure of a month because like they got through the game last Tuesday, which we highlighted all the games they played the previous week on last week's show, but they got through the game against LA and then they were going to be on the road for a little bit and they had just played something like 4 out of 5 at home is what it was. So it was a really busy stretch. They had those last two. Then they had this bye week with the All-Star break hitting. Now they're going to be back for a 4-game homestand and then on the road for almost the rest of the month.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy how that breaks down.
3 games before the road trip to kind of get out to Seattle and acclimatize, and then 2 days afterward.
4, actually. Yeah,
okay.
4.
And then 2 days at home to, get home and chill.
And if you by the way, if you want to tie it into one of the other news stories we had here, the very first game they play on Monday night when they play the Islanders.
That Bo Horvat.
Bo Horvat's Islanders debut.
Man, he's going to light the Flyers up. All right.
I think it could be fun. I mean, we'll see what happens.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and we'll break that game down for you. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at YWT Podcast. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso. Find the show everywhere you find your podcasts: Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SportsTalkPhilly.com. We're on Amazon. We're on Pandora. I think we're everywhere.
We are.
But make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button. I'm going to do that. And then until 2 weeks, go Birds.
Go Birds.
We'll see you.